Gunfire, rebel fighters, checkpoints. Smoke rising near the presidential palace, Yemen facing chaos. Many say this is the beginning of an attempted coup by Houthi rebels, even as there were claims of a ceasefire.
Every time the discussion turns to where a good portion of global terrorism originates from, the country of Yemen is always in the mix. And now we have shots being fired at a U.S. embassy vehicle in the capital city and much more. American taxpayers shell out millions to shore up the Yemenis government. And perhaps the time has come to put our intelligence to work, seeing if those dollars are actually being used to fight terror there, or if it's all just winding up in somebody's pocket for a nice vacation. Let's get down to some real intelligence. Former CIA analyst Lisa Ruth joins us here in the studio. Always good to see you.
Thanks for having me.
Since that report was aired that we saw coming in until right now, there is apparently a coup that is involved in Yemen. The presidential palace has been seized. The prime minister's residence has been seized. And according to one report I read, they said there is no government in Yemen. Okay, let me ask a really foolish question. Has there been a government in Yemen for the last few years for us to even think that there might be something to overthrow?
Yeah, here we are again. You and I think we should just have a little banner that says political vacuum, you know, what we're looking at. But really, in Yemen, we've had this situation. You've had the Shia groups and the Sunni groups. You've had the government. You've had the corrupt parts of the former government, and now it's really just starting to devolve along those lines is what we're really seeing. It's also, keep in mind, our good friends Iran there, you know, aligned with these guys. And has there been a government? If there was, it's not anymore. And it was very tangential. The hold on the country was very weak anyway.
So knowing that, now wait a minute, before we actually launched into this, you said the coup that maybe isn't a coup. So does that tell us that maybe there wasn't anything there to throw a coup over, maybe? I'm not sure what that says.
Well, you know what, my point was working with terrorists slash freedom fighters slash rebels, depends on whose side you're on. I saw that the Houthis came out and said this is not a coup. We're just protecting the government, which is what you say when you do a coup. If you're on the other side, it's a coup. So, you know, the question is, right now we don't really know who's in charge. Back to your point before, who was or not. But it does set up a situation. The United States gives a lot of money. We are involved in counter-terrorist operations. We have advisors there. We have officially CIA officers there to help with the counter-terrorist threat. We launch drone strikes against terrorists there. It's one of the places we do that. What happens now? How safe are the Americans? We know that they're being shot at.
Well, you just brought up a name that I would probably guess that 97% of the people watching this have never heard, the Houthis. We are constantly talking about different groups and different factions who are out there. Simple question then. Who are they? Why are they? And should we even be concerned about them?
Yes, yes, and yes.
Okay.
They're from the north of Yemen, and they are Shia. They're a group of Shia fighters, and they are aligned with Iran. We know that for a fact. Now, but again, it's the same story that we had in Iraq. We had a situation where the Sunnis alienated the Shiites, and that's what started to happen. The Shiites came in, they had peace talks, the government calmed things down, everybody's friends. Well, that didn't last, what a surprise. And now you have the Shiites coming in, and there are renewed allegations, or there's renewed information that Iran has stepped up support for them over the last several months. Not a big surprise. But this really goes back to the larger situation in the Middle East, where we have the Saudis backing the Sunnis, we have the Iranians backing the Shia, and it's this proxy war that the two sides are fighting all across the Middle East. It's creating huge instability.
When we keep looking at unstable governments, and we talked about so many others, should we then be talking about Yemen as a government that's seeing what we are watching today with a coup involved here, that this is another one of those countries that is going to be unstable perhaps for a decade or more?
I don't think that's out of the question at all. We've got a situation, again, multiple factions, and even those start to break down within. As you know, the Sunni groups, it's not a monolithic organization here. And you've got terrorist groups, Al-Qaeda and their peninsulas there. We have other Sunni fighters. We have the former president. We have the current president. You have the Houthis. You've got...
We have a mess.
We're back to a situation, and who wins? Terrorists.
Because it is fair to say that no matter how we slice it, the terrorists are there. The Yemenis government does not do everything they can to ferret them out, and they are protecting them in many ways, and that is all part of the problem itself.
And they love a vacuum. This is a situation to be able to move in and take advantage and create more instability.
And we tossed $52 million at the Yemen government in 2012, and what do we have to show for it?
Instability and terrorism.
Thank you. Welcome back to what exactly is the Middle East and another government. All right. Other side of the break with Lisa Ruth. Those pesky Iranian nuclear power plants and the president's assertion that we should not hold up negotiations with Iran just because they're not being as forthright as demanded. You can bet the Iranians are thinking something entirely different. That, the situation in Ukraine, and much more. All right, welcome back. Let's get back to work. Former CIA intelligence analyst Lisa Ruth. Let's go ahead and spin out of the Middle East, please. And then let's go to Europe, which might not be any better. I found this fascinating. Here's a story. European countries prepare response to Islamist terror. We need to share information. We need to cooperate more among member states. Look, the euro, they can't even get their currency straight. And here they are saying that we need to do this and we need to do a better job. Yes, you do. But is it possible? As you look at, from an intelligence standpoint, the governments in Europe, is it even possible for them to get together and share enough information to adequately fight terror?
Not really. You know, what we see is there's continued egos, essentially. You know, they can't agree on border controls. They can't agree on most things. When they have summits together, you've got Merkel up there doing her thing. You've got Hollande doing his thing. You've got the UK, certainly, which is the outlier. And if you look back at border controls in Europe, they have not been able to control their own borders. Had they been able to do so, you would see far less terrorist movement through.
Would it be fair to say that the Euro borders at one time, maybe even today, are more porous than what we believe our borders to be?
Oh, sure. You know, if you've traveled through Europe, you know. Once you're there, going across the borders is incredibly easy. And even Turkey, which is not part of the EU, but they have even relaxed their restrictions because of the EU. There's this idea, oh, it's all open, we're all friends here. And it is unrealistic to believe, even sharing information. It just doesn't happen. They can put on a good face, but in reality, there is just too much distrust, there's too many egos, there's too much nationalism.
Okay, then in reality, as American intelligence services look at what's happening in Europe, and maybe we take MI5 out of this because they seem to be pretty good at what they do, but as we look at some of the other intelligence organizations in other countries, frankly, do the Americans sit there and go, please?
It's very difficult. Liaison sharing it's diplomacy in itself. But there is a problem, and that is if I tell someone information, how secure am I that that's going to stay where it is? And there are limits. The way the U.S. shares intelligence, we have very close friends. The UK is a special relationship. But beyond that, we're careful about what we share, and a lot of it just has to do with that, sources and methods again, and lack of trust. We're not sure who else is listening in. That's
always a part of it. Turn to Iran right now. We have a discussion that there's going to be a resumption of talks next month. Has anything really changed here, or are the Iranians still playing for time?
Oh, there's nothing that's changed. If you look, again, the same issues are there. And I heard this morning that what's coming out of Iran is they're saying to the U.S., well, we're running out of time. President Rouhani may not be able to do this anymore.
Lip flap.
And again, it's trying to pressure the United States. They are still not forthcoming. They're still not providing us access, or the international organizations access. They're digging in their heels. There has been no movement. There have been a lot of nice public appearances saying the right things, but when it really comes down to it, Iran has not made any substantial changes or any indication that they're curbing their nuclear program, period.
60 seconds now. Let's turn to the Ukraine. The President Petro Poroshenko says sanctions are working on Russia. Even as we hear today, there's more fighting and more tanks rolling. Is he just basically throwing something out there, or is it working?
Really, what's working the best against Russia's economy right now is low oil prices. And the fact that the oil prices have dropped is hurting them far more than sanctions. But again, if I look at playing the result here, I don't see Russia pulling back at all in terms of Ukraine. And as he gets tighter and tighter in a desperate economic situation, I wouldn't be surprised to see more fighting.
Well, this almost sounds like a PR move because there's now about 9,000 Russian troops in Ukraine. That's more than there were. So maybe he's playing for time as well and just trying to placate Putin at this point?
That could very well be, or his own people. You know, keep in mind, he's got a PR thing to do domestically as well.
I'm glad we live in America. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Much happier every single day. Lisa Ruth, always a pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you so much. We'll bring people some real truth again next week, which is always a little frightening. America, by the way, just loves a good fight. And they also cannot get enough of Hollywood notables that are basically just tinkling on their own. Such is the case with American Sniper. We're going to head for the left coast and Twitterland after the break because, once again, it is a case of the great beached whale who is learning how to speak in English tongue. That and so much more when we continue.